As I get older, there are many things that I think about that I really maybe never thought about before, or at least as much. And one of those things is my mortality. Sure, I've always known that I would, die someday. But when I was younger, that day was a mysterious day that was, years and years away in the future and not something I had to think about much. What I once considered to be, years away could be tonight, it could be tomorrow, next week, or even decades from now. But the point is, I have more time behind me at this point in my life than I do in front of me. Now, I know I'm being morbid about this, but just bear with me. This all started when I started looking at my record collection. And it all kicked off back in 1977 with that first Elvis record I got for Christmas. And since then, the collection has grown. And I remember a time when I could fit my entire collection in one box. I mean, it was a long time ago. Now it's grown to the point that if I said, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna listen to every record that I own from A to Z." I don't have enough time. It would never happen. I'd be gone long before that listening project was ever finished. So I have to pick and choose. There are some records that I revisit, frequently, and then there are those that I forget about, but I'll remember suddenly while listening to another piece of music. But what will happen to my collection when I die?
To die, to be really dead, that must be glorious.
I don't like to think about it, but there will be a time when my collection is going to be gifted or handed over to someone else. Maybe it'll be donated. Maybe it'll just be broken down and sold off. And it does make me sad because I won't have a say in it. Whatever its fate is, it will happen without me. I also wonder what it'll be like for my family. It's not going to be easy for them to have to deal with that. And they probably won't know what to do with it. I mean, it's a very tangible part of me, and they know how important that collection is to me. I've always called it kind of like my vinyl turtle shell. I think I've said that on this channel before. It's because that's the only thing I've ever owned that I've carted around with me from place to place, from house to house, apartment to apartment, and followed me here where I've been for the last 20 years. And I know it'll be a burden for somebody after I'm gone. And they probably won't even want to play those records. They'll be afraid of scratching them. And that's really my fault. I put that fear of scratching records in them. So I'd have to say more often than not, they're a little bit apprehensive about handling my records. And that's shame on me. The funny thing is, I find when I do think about this, I find myself thinking about certain records instead of the entire collection. And that's probably because it's hard to, wrap your mind around an entire collection of records. It's usually single ones that will spring to mind when I think about what might happen to the collection when I'm gone. I think about some of those first records that were in that small box that I mentioned that I used to be able to fit them all in. One great example is this one right here. It's Buck Dahmer's Flat Out. And if you don't know who Buck Dahmer is, he is the was and is still the lead guitarist for Blue Oyster Cult. I mean, he sang some of their hits like, Don't Fear the Reaper and Burning for You. And this was released in 1980, yeah, 1982. Wow, 1982. It still floors me when I look at some of these records and remember buying them, and then it'll hit me. That was, I'm bad with math. How long is that? 42 years ago? That's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. But when I was 14 years old, this record was a prized possession of mine, and that's because he was my favorite member of the band. And that's what I think about. What will happen to this record when I'm gone? Will it be in my daughter's possession? Will it be in a used record store someday? Will it be in a bargain bin in a Salvation Army or something? Or will it just simply vanish? Yeah, I have no idea what'll happen to it. If asked what I would like to see happen, I would love to see the entire collection remain intact and to stay in the family, maybe being passed down to the next generation and the generation after that. But I do realize it's a burden. It's a big collection, and I can't imagine somebody taking that on. Can you imagine if, you're mourning the loss of a family member and you're all of a sudden presented with, here's a bunch of plastic discs. have at it. I don't know. It's kind of hard. So it takes up a lot of space. It's if I had an apartment, I would not be able to store all the records in the same place. I'd have to, I guess, get a storage unit or something. So it's up to me to figure out what happens to these records so that my family doesn't have to. So let's set aside the morbidity piece of it. Is morbidity a word? Anyway, let's set that aside for a second. There is this company in the UK called And Vinyl. That's And Vinyl. And they've partnered with a crematorium. I think it's Gedling Crematorium. And they provide a very unique service. What they will do is they will take your ashes and they will have those ashes pressed into a vinyl record. Can you imagine that? And you can pick what goes on it. You have 18 to 20 minutes per side. So you could put music on it or a special playlist, or you could just put a message to your loved ones or utter silence. And they can just listen to the pops and clicks as the needle drags through your ashes. Kind of just creeped myself out. Granted, it's yet another record for them to add to this vast collection that you willed them. But imagine what that would be like to have your voice coming out of the speakers from a vinyl record that contains a few grams of your ashes. I do have a stipulation in my will for where I presently what I would like to have happen to my records. But that can always change. As time goes on, I might realize, you know what, I don't want to burden this person with all of these records and what to do with them. And out of curiosity, I did ask ChatGPT what I just picked a number. I said 1,500 records. What is the weight of 1,500 records? And it came back with roughly an estimated weight of 500 pounds. Yeah, 500 pounds. I cannot imagine saying to my daughter or my son, yeah, here's 500 pounds of records. And it occurred to me while I was putting together this episode that, vinyl records are really valuable to the person who collects them, not so much anybody else. It's not like I had a garage full of used cars or vintage antique automobiles or maybe a stamp collection or a collection of rare or coins. Those would be a lot lighter to pass on. Maybe I should have collected Pokemon cards or something. So going back to the question I posed at the beginning of the episode, what will happen to my records when I die? So I'm going to toss this back to you. What will happen to your records when you die? Where would you like to see it go? Are you going to leave instructions for, who gets it after you are no longer here and perhaps what you'd like to have happen to it? Maybe it's donated or gifted to a local library or something. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. And it doesn't matter how big or small your collection is. It's your collection. It's your memories. It's important and it's valuable. So just leave a comment below. Don't forget to, do all the things, tap like and tap subscribe and help keep this channel alive. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, please take care of yourself and enjoy your records.